The executioner raised his sword and struck the young bride's neck 3 times. But incredibly, her head didn't fall. By Roman law, he couldn't strike a 4th time. So he left her there, bleeding but fully alive. For 3 entire days she didn't cry. Instead, she started to preach. They say there is a certain danger in idleness. It is the nurse of all vices, lounging like a lazy porter right at the front gate of our worldly delights. You see, the devil has 1,000 sly, invisible cords, just waiting to tangle us up. When he spots someone sitting around doing absolutely nothing, he snaps his trap right onto the hem of their coat. Before they even realize it, they are entirely in his hand. Honestly, it is exactly why we have to stay busy with good, honest work. Sloth holds people on a tight leash, making them do nothing but sleep, eat, drink, and lazily devour everything that hardworking folks actually make. Now, to keep my own self out of that particular trap, I put my mind to a faithful little project. I decided to translate a rather famous legend, the glorious life and passion of a maiden and a martyr. A saint who wears a crown of unseen roses and lilies. I am talking, of course, about Saint Cecilia. But before I begin, I must call upon the Virgin Mary. She is the flower of all virgins, the deep well of mercy, and the ultimate cure for sinful souls. She is the humble and high one who miraculously clothed God's own Son in flesh and blood right inside the quiet cloister of her own blissful sides. She is the very Sun of excellence. She always steps in to help people, full of pity, often before they even know how to ask. So I prayed for her to help me tell this tale. I felt like a banished outcast, wandering aimlessly in a bitter, dusty desert. I asked her to think of the Canaanite woman, the one who boldly pointed out that even the little dogs get to eat the crumbs that fall from their Lord's table. Even though I am just a sinful, unworthy son of Eve, I asked her to accept my faith. I needed her to be my advocate in that high place where they sing Hosanna forever. To give me the wit and the breathing room to do this work, and to pull my heavy soul out of the dark, earthly prison of my body. And if my telling of this story isn't perfectly subtle, well, I hope you will forgive me. I am simply following the words and the meaning of the one who originally wrote her legend. Believe it or not, her name, Cecily, actually means quite a lot. In English, you could say it means heaven's lily, because of her pure virginity and the green, flourishing conscience of her good reputation. Or it means the way of the blind, because she was such a shining example with her teachings. Some say it joins the word heaven with Laya, meaning holiness, set right next to her lasting, busy work. It can even mean a lack of blindness, thanks to her bright, clear qualities of wisdom. Or perhaps it comes from heaven and the word Leos, which means people. She was the heaven of the people. Just as we look up and see the sun, the moon, and the glittering stars, people looked at this free maiden and saw the greatness of faith and bright, excellent works. She was swift, well-rounded, and burning full and bright with charity. Now let me paint you a picture of her life. This bright maiden Cecily came from a very noble Roman family. From the cradle, she was fostered deeply in the Christian faith. She carried the gospel in her mind at all times like a treasured jewel. And she never stopped praying to God, begging him to protect her maidenhood. Her purity was her prized possession. But as things went in those days, the time finally came when she had to marry. She was wedded to a handsome, very young man named Valerian. On the day of the marriage, she wore a beautiful, heavy robe of gleaming gold. It sat perfectly on her shoulders, but underneath that magnificent gold, right against her bare, soft flesh, she was secretly wearing a terribly rough garment made of bristling haircloth. While the organs in the hall played their loud, joyous melodies, Cecily was quietly singing in her heart to God alone. She prayed, "Lord, guide my soul and my body. Let me stay unblemished so I am not ruined." And for the love of the one who died upon the tree, she fasted every second or third day, praying her quiet orisons with a fierce determination. Then night fell, the heavy doors closed. It was time for her to go to bed with her new husband, as is the custom. She pulled him aside very privately. She looked up at him and said, "Oh, sweet and well-beloved spouse. I have a secret, and I would gladly tell you, but only if you swear you will not betray me." Valerian, thoroughly intrigued, swore to her. He promised that no matter what happened, he would never breathe a word to anyone. So for the very first time, she let her guard down. "I have an angel who loves me," she said calmly, "and whether I wake or sleep, this angel is always ready to guard my body. If he feels, without a doubt, that you are touching me or loving me in a wicked, impure way, he will strike you dead right on the spot. You would die right here in your youth, but if you guide me in clean love, he will love you too. And he will show you his joy and his brightness." Valerian listened, his eyes wide. God was already working on him. He answered, his voice tight, "If you want me to trust you, let me see this angel. Let me behold him. If it is a real angel from God, I will do exactly what you prayed for. But if I find out you actually love another man, honestly, I will take my sword and kill you both." Cecily didn't blink, she answered him right then and there. "If you want to see the angel, you can, but you have to know Christ and you have to be baptized. Go forth to the Via Appia. It is a muddy road just 3 miles out from this town. Go to the poor folks who live out there in the ruins. Tell them I sent you. Tell them you need to see good old Urban for a secret matter and with good intent. When you find Saint Urban, tell him the exact words I just told you. Once he purges you of your sin, you will see the angel before you even depart." So Valerian went. He marched out into the night and did exactly what she taught him. He found this holy old man, Urban, lying entirely concealed among the dusty, echoing burial places of the saints. Valerian did not tarry, he gave the old man the message. And when Urban heard it, he was so joyful he threw his wrinkled hands up in the air. Tears literally fell from his eyes and caught in his beard. He cried out, "Almighty Lord Jesus, sower of chaste counsel and shepherd of us all. Take the fruit of that seed of chastity that you sowed in Cecily. Look at this, like a busy little bee without any trickery, your servant Cecily serves you." She took this spouse who was acting like a fierce, roaring lion, and she sent him here to me as meek as any lamb. Right with that word, an old man suddenly materialized out of the shadows. He was dressed in impossibly clear white clothes, holding a book with letters made of glowing gold. He stepped right up and stood before Valerian. Valerian was so utterly full of dread that he dropped flat on the cold ground, as if he had been struck dead. But the old man simply reached down and lifted him right back up. Then he opened his book and started to read. He read, "One Lord, one faith, one God with no others. One Christendom, one Father of all, above all and over all everywhere." All these words shone in gold. When he finished, the old man looked at Valerian. He asked quietly, "Do you believe this or no? Say yea or nay." Valerian swallowed hard. "I believe all this," he answered. "Honestly, there is nothing truer under heaven that a person could even think of." Then in the blink of an eye, the old man vanished. Valerian had no idea where he went, and Pope Urban christened him right there in the damp dark. Valerian went home a changed man, and when he walked into the bedchamber he found Cecily. She was standing there, and a real, radiant angel was right beside her. This angel was holding 2 crowns woven from fresh roses and lilies. He gently placed the first crown on Cecily's head. Then he handed the second one to her wide-eyed mate, Valerian. The angel looked at them both and said, "Keep these 2 crowns well with clean bodies and unblemished thoughts. I brought them to you straight from paradise, they will never rot. They will never lose their sweet smell, trust me, and no person will ever be able to see them with their eyes unless they are chaste and utterly hate villainy." Then the angel turned his bright gaze to Valerian. "And since you agreed to this good counsel so soon, say what you wish. You shall have your desire." Valerian found his voice. "I have a brother," he said. In this whole world, there is no man I love more. I pray that my brother may have the grace to know the truth, just like I do in this place." The angel smiled. "God likes your request. Both of you will come to his blissful rest with the palm of martyrdom." And with that very word, his brother Tiberius came bursting into the room. The moment he stepped inside, he stopped dead in his tracks. He caught the deep, impossible scent of fresh roses and lilies. He started wondering fast in his heart, looking around the empty room. "I wonder," Tiberius said, sniffing the air, "at this time of year, where is this sweet scent of roses and lilies coming from? Even if I had them right here, crushed in both my hands, the smell could not go any deeper into me. This sweet smell I am finding in my heart has completely changed me into another kind of person." Valerian said, "We are wearing two crowns here, snow white and rose red, and they shine with a clear light. But your eyes do not have the power to see them. Right now you smell them through my prayer. But you shall see them, beloved brother, if you put away your sloth, believe properly, and know the real truth." Tiberius squinted at him. "Are you saying this to me for real? Or am I hearing this in a dream?" "We have been in a dream up until this time, brother," Valerian said softly. "But now, for the very first time, our dwelling is in truth." "How do you know this?" Tiberius asked, suspicious. "In what way?" "I will describe it to you," Valerian said. "The angel of God taught me the truth. And you shall see him too, if you renounce the idols and be clean. And otherwise nothing." You see, even the noble Dr. St. Ambrose solemnly praised this incredible miracle of the two crowns later on in his writings. He wrote about how Cecily, full of God's gift, forsook the world and the comforts of her chamber to receive the palm of martyrdom. How God sent an angel to bring those two sweet-smelling flower crowns to witness the confession of Tiberius and Cecily. It showed the whole world what the devotion of true chastity is really worth. Anyway, Cecily sat down with her brother-in-law. She laid it out completely open and plain that his Roman idols were just vain, empty things. She told him they are dumb, and therefore they are deaf. She charged him to leave his little statues behind. Tiberius listened to her flawless logic. Finally he sighed and said, "Honestly, anyone who does not believe this is a beast. If I shall not lie." When Cecily heard this, she leaned over and kissed him on the breast. She was so incredibly glad he could finally spot the truth. "This day," she declared, "I take you for my ally." This blissful, beautiful, clever maiden was simply thrilled. And after that she kept right on speaking. She told Tiberius that just as the love of Christ made her his brother's wife, she was taking him as her ally right then and there, because he was finally willing to despise those useless idols. She told him to go with Valerian, get baptized, and be made clean. That way, he could actually see the angel's face his brother had been raving about. Tiberius looked at his brother and asked where exactly they were supposed to go. And to what man? Valerian told him to come along with good cheer because he was going to lead him straight to Pope Urban. Tiberius could hardly believe his ears. "To Urban?" he asked, his voice rising in panic. He asked Valerian if he seriously wanted to take him there. He thought it was a wildly suicidal idea. He wanted to know if this was the same Urban who had been condemned to death. "The guy who is always hiding in dark corners, pacing back and forth, too afraid to even poke his head out," Tiberius sputtered. He pointed out that if men found Urban or even just spotted him, they would burn him in a glowing red fire. "And they will burn the two of us as well, just for keeping him company." Tiberius was sweating now. He said that while they were busy looking for some hidden divinity up in heaven, they were going to get themselves burned alive right here on earth. Cecily answered him boldly, entirely unfazed. She told her dear brother that it would be totally reasonable to fear losing this life if this was the only life there was. But she promised him there was a much better life in another place. A life that could never be lost. She explained that God's Son had told them this through his grace. The Holy Spirit had given souls to everything, without a doubt. And when God's Son was in this world, he declared with his own words and miracles that there is another life where people can dwell. Tiber stopped her rubbing his temples. He asked his dear sister a question. Had he not just heard her say there was only one God? One Lord in absolute truth, so how could she suddenly be talking about three? Cecily was more than ready for that. She smiled and said she would explain it before he left. She told him to think about a man. A man has three mental faculties. He has memory, wit, and intellect, but he is still quite obviously one man. In the exact same way, three persons can exist perfectly within one divine being. Then she really started preaching. She told him all about Christ coming to earth. She taught him about his pain and his passion. She explained how God's Son was sent into this cold world to give full remission to mankind, since humanity was entirely bound up in sin and wretched cares. She laid it all out for Tibers, and after hearing her speak, Tibers was fully on board. With perfectly good intentions and a steady heart, he went with Valerian out to the tombs to find Pope Urban. Urban thanked God. With a light and happy heart, he baptized Tibers right there in the damp. He made him perfect in his learning, a true knight of God. And after that, Tibers received such incredible grace that every single day, he saw the angel of God. And any time he asked God for a favor, it was granted instantly. Honestly, it would take far too long to list out all the wonders Jesus performed for them. But to keep things short and plain, the sergeants of the town of Rome eventually came looking for them. They arrested the brothers and brought them right before Almachius, the powerful Roman prefect. Almachius questioned them. He quickly figured out exactly what they were up to, and he sent them straight to the towering image of Jupiter. His orders were simple and brutal. He said that whoever refused to make a sacrifice to Jupiter would have his head struck off. That was his final sentence. So an officer named Maximus took these soon-to-be martyrs away. He was Almachius's own official, but as he led the saints out looking at their calm faces, he started weeping. He felt so much pity for them. Maximus listened to the saints' teaching as they walked. And he was so moved that he actually got permission from the torturers to take them back to his own house for the night. Before evening even fell, their preaching completely rooted out the false faith from Maximus and every single person in his household. They all started believing in God alone. When night fell, Cecily arrived. She brought priests with her under the cover of darkness, and they baptized the whole group right there. When morning came and the day grew bright, Cecily looked at them with a totally steadfast face. She told them they were Christ's beloved knights now. She said to cast away the works of darkness and put on the gleaming armor of brightness. They had fought a great battle, they had finished their course and kept their faith. She told them the rightful judge would give them the crown of life, just as they deserved. And right after she said those beautiful words, the men were led away to make the sacrifice. But when they got to the spot, well, to give you the short version, they absolutely refused to burn a single grain of incense or make a sacrifice. Instead, they just knelt down on the dusty ground. They had humble, steadfast hearts, and right there in that place they both lost their heads. Their souls went straight to the King of Grace. Maximus watched the whole bloody thing happen, and afterward, crying piteous tears, he told everyone exactly what he had seen. He said he saw their souls gliding up to heaven with angels, completely full of clearness and bright light. Just by telling this story with such conviction, he converted a lot of people. But Almachius found out, and he was absolutely furious. He had Maximus beaten with a heavy whip made of lead until he finally died. Cecily came in the quiet of the night, took his battered body and buried him softly right next to Tibers and Valerian, under the stone in their burying place. After this, Almachius wasted no time. He ordered his men to go fetch Cecily. He wanted her brought out into the open so she could burn incense and make a sacrifice to Jupiter right in front of him. But believe it or not, when the officers went to get her, they ended up listening to her wise teaching. They wept bitterly, they completely believed her words, crying out more and more. They said that Christ, God's Son, is the true God. They declared with one voice that they believed this, even if they had to die for it. When Almachius heard that even his own officers were turning, he demanded Cecily be brought directly to him so he could look right at her. The very first thing he asked her, glaring down from his seat, was what kind of woman she was. She simply looked back at him and told him she was a gentlewoman by birth. Almachius sneered. He said he was asking about her religion and her beliefs, even if the question grieved her. Cecily smiled a wry little smile. She told him he had started his questioning foolishly. She asked why he would try to cram two different answers into one demand. She calmly called him ignorant. Almachius was taken aback by her sheer attitude. He asked where she got such a rude answer from. When she was asked this, Cecily just said it came from her conscience and from unfeigned good faith. Almachius puffed up his chest and asked if she took any heed of his immense power. She answered him right back without missing a beat. She said his might was very little to dread. She told him that every mortal man's power is nothing but a bladder full of wind. You just blow it up, prick it with the point of a tiny needle, and all that boastful air is laid completely flat. Almachius, turning red, told her she was starting off wrongfully and that she was persevering in wrong. He reminded her that their mighty princes had commanded that every Christian must be punished, unless they denied their faith. If they renounced it, they could walk away free. Cecily said his princes were making a mistake, just like his so-called nobility. She said they were using a mad judgment to make innocent people look guilty. She pointed out that he knew perfectly well they were innocent. But just because they revered Christ and carried a Christian name, he was trying to stick them with a crime. She said they knew that name was virtuous, and they could never deny it. Almachius slammed his fist down. He told her to choose one of two options: sacrifice or renounce Christianity so she could escape with her life. At this, the holy, beautiful maid just started to laugh. She looked right at the seething judge and called him confounded in his folly. She asked if he really wanted her to renounce her own innocence, just to turn herself into a wicked person. Almachius was staring at her, growing absolutely furious in his thoughts. He called her an unhappy wretch. He asked if she realized how far his power could stretch. He said the princes had given him the ultimate authority to make people live or die. He demanded to know why she was speaking so proudly to him. Cecily replied that she was not speaking proudly at all. She was just speaking steadfastly. She told him she mortally hated the vice of pride. And if he was not afraid to hear the truth, she would prove out in the open that he had just told a massive lie. She reminded him that he just claimed his princes gave him the power to both slay a person and give them life. But she pointed out that he could only take life away. He had absolutely no power to give life at all. She said he could call himself a minister of death, but if he claimed anything more, he was lying. His power was completely naked. Almachius yelled at her to drop her boldness and sacrifice to the gods before she left. He said he didn't care what insults she threw at him personally, because he could suffer them like a true philosopher. But he absolutely could not endure the things she was saying about his gods. Cecily shook her head and called him a foolish creature. She said every word he spoke just proved his folly. She called him an ignorant officer and a vain judge. She told him he was blind. She said everyone else in the room could clearly see that his idol was just a chunk of stone. She advised him to let his hand fall on it, to touch it and test it for himself. She promised him he would find out it was cold stone, since his blind eyes clearly could not see it. She said it was a shame the people were going to laugh at his foolishness. Because everyone everywhere knew that the mighty God was high up in heaven. And these statues, as he could easily figure out, were completely useless to him and to themselves. They weren't even worth a mite. Well, after she said those words, Almachius was overflowing with pure, blinding anger. He ordered his men to lead her home. His sentence was brutal. He told them to put her right into a bath and burn her alive with roaring red flames. The men did exactly as they were told. They shut her fast inside a bath in her own home, and they kindled a massive fire underneath it, feeding it logs day and night. The long night passed, and a whole day too, but despite the roaring fire and the intense, suffocating heat of the bath, Cecily sat there completely cold. She felt no pain at all. The heat didn't even make her sweat a single drop. But she still had to leave her life in that bath, because Almachius, full of wicked intent, heard she was unharmed and sent an order to have her slain right there. The executioner came in, raised his sword, and struck her in the neck 3 times. But by some miraculous chance, he just could not cut her beautiful neck in 2. Now, at that time, there was a very strict law in Rome that no man was allowed to strike a 4th blow to torture someone. So whether the final strike would have been soft or hard, the executioner simply did not dare to hit her again. He left her lying there half dead, her neck terribly gashed, and just walked away defeated. The Christian folk of the city gathered around her quietly. They gently used soft sheets to soak up her blood. And believe it or not, she lived for 3 whole days in that torment. And she never once stopped teaching the faith to the people she had fostered. Through the pain, she just kept preaching. She gathered everyone and gave them all her goods and belongings. Then, she commended them to Pope Urban. She told them she had asked the King of Heaven for just 3 days of respite so she could recommend these souls to Urban, and so she could have her own house turned into a church perpetually. Saint Urban and his deacons came secretly by night. They fetched her body with great reverence and gave her a proper, honorable burial among his other saints. True to her dying wish, her house was indeed named the Church of Saint Cecilia. Saint Urban hallowed it himself, and to this very day men still go there in noble fashion to serve Christ and his brilliant saint. Thank you for listening to this story. Narrated with Aura Reader.